this could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
CBS News, 60 Minutes, Sunday on CBS.
Superstar approaching, superstar approaching.
Let's get your popcorn and get ready.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. Yeah, boy.
It is a new day in America. The sun's shining, and that's a reflection about how we all feel.
It's going to be a big effort to try to re-earn some of that trust and some of that effort. But, I think we're up to the task.
After 18 years, I've been the majority leader, I've been the minority leader, the majority is a lot better.
I think we're going to have a family conversation that needs to be clear-eyed, candid, and comprehensive to figure out what happened on election night.
Hello, I'm Caitlin Huey-Burns in Washington. Welcome to America Decides. President-elect Donald Trump's cabinet is quickly taking shape. Florida Senator Marco Rubio has been tapped to possibly be the next Secretary of State. Rubio has taken hardline positions on several foreign policy positions, including relations with countries like China and Iran. South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem is Trump's pick for Homeland Security Secretary. She'll work alongside some Trump insiders like Stephen Miller and Tom Homan. Lawmakers have also returned to the halls of Capitol Hill today for a lame duck session. They'll be focusing on addressing some key legislative priorities ahead of a newly seated Congress next year. And that all includes electing a new Senate Majority Leader. So we'll start tonight with Major Garrett and Weijia Jiang. Thank you both for being with us. I know you have covered this past administration, the administration before, and Trump 2.0. So it's great to have you both with us. Weijia, I want to start with you because you are in West Palm Beach following all of the happenings at headquarters there. What is the idea behind picking someone like Marco Rubio? And we should note, Trump himself has not officially announced that he is his choice, but we have sources confirming.
Well, that's a really important distinction, Caitlin, because you never know with President-elect Trump. But to your point, our sources confirm that he is expected to be selected to be the Secretary of State, which is really relevant, especially given their colorful history, if you will. You'll remember back in 2016, they really butted heads during the 2016 Republican primary, during which Trump gave Rubio the nickname of Little Rubio. But since then, he has really embraced the MAGA movement, and he was one of Trump's fiercest fighters on the campaign trail during this cycle. And I think what's important here is a nod to his incoming Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, who is a Florida native, who was really pushing for Rubio to be the vice presidential nominee. And I think this is sort of a consolation prize for Wiles. And it shows that Trump is listening to her advice on this front, at least. Not to mention Rubio's expansive experience on the foreign policy stage. And to your point also, it's interesting that Trump's pick for National Security Advisor, Congressman Mike Waltz, is also extremely aggressive on China. So we could see even more of a shift to that part of the country, to the world, because both of these lawmakers have expressed how important it is to prepare for a potential conflict with Beijing.
Yeah, Major, to Weijia's point, I want to play a little bit of Marco Rubio in 2016 versus now, just to remind our audience.
If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. The second...
So cute. Such a cute soundbite.
Together with Donald Trump, we are going to make America not just great, but greater than it has ever been before.
All right, so how things have changed. But we know from reporting on Trump that he does prize this kind of people that convert back to his cause.
He loves the converted.
Exactly. So tell us a little bit more about what you're making of this pick and also what you're hearing behind the scenes of how Trump is thinking about this transition.
So this is a very odd situation for Senator Rubio, ranking Republican on Foreign Relations Committee. a sizable, influential senator in the Republican conference. And we're now almost 24 hours into this offer being made and accepted without an official declaration from Trump, either on a social media platform or from the transition team. There's no doubt that he's, in my mind, based on my reporting, that Rubio is going to be the person. But this void, this suspended animation he's in is creating, like, what's going on? What I'm told is it's two things. One, the transition team wants to sort of announce things in a methodical way. Trump does not want to be methodical. He just wants to make offers and do things. Yet, and there's also kind of a MAGA pushback against Rubio. Rick Grinnell and others who had previous positions in the first Trump administration, and some hard MAGA types don't think Rubio's loyal enough or America first enough. I'm told those things will be resolved, but it is a prism into difficulties even now when they're trying to move quickly and Trump is trying to set a quick pace. One other quick observation. There will be cabinet secretaries, but keep your eye on czars. Tom Homan is exactly what I mean by that. He's going to have more influence over border security and deportation policy than the Homeland Security Secretary ever will, or even Stephen Miller will as Deputy Chief of Staff inside the White House. If there's another czar, let's say in the healthcare space, like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the same thing will apply. Direct reports to the president, do not require Senate confirmation, and invested with tremendous power because Trump wants it that way.
And Weija, to Major's point, you mentioned Tom Homan. I mean, Kristi Noem is the pick to be DHS secretary. Tell us a little bit more about what went on behind the scenes in terms of that pick. I mean, I think people will remember her from her unfortunate recounting of the way she handled a pet of hers. But what does she kind of mean to Trump's orbit?
Well, we've been talking about this all week, Caitlin, and she is just the latest example of how Trump rewards loyalty. In this cycle, she was among the first Republican governors to publicly endorse Trump. She has been by his side and, fiercely defended him at every opportunity that she could, even rising to the shorter list of potential VP picks for Trump. But that collided with the release of her memoir, as you talked about, in which she recounted shooting her dog because she said it was untrainable. But she also, thought that might play in her favor because she wanted to show how tough she was, that she could handle a big job. And this certainly is a big job. But to Major's point, and he has been reporting about this extensively, she was named after Homan and after Miller. So really, she will, even though she'll have the title of a cabinet secretary, those two are the bigger players when it comes to actually drawing up the blueprint for the mass deportations. And in some ways, she'll have to answer to them.
Yeah, it's a fascinating dynamic, too. And we know, Major, obviously, the former president, now president-elect, does prize, the ability to go on television, sell the case.
Right.
I did notice Noem and several other women were by his side on the campaign trail and town hall type settings to kind of put that face forward. But
Noem also has a couple of other things that went for her in this regard. She was among the first Republican governors to send National Guard troops to Texas to assist Governor Greg Abbott. She also was the first governor to call for a ban on TikTok. Trump, apparently, according to the Washington Post, is now reconsidering his position on TikTok, but she was ahead on that. Those kind of things caught Trump's attention on a policy side, but the political loyalty, stalwart defense of Trump all the way through, all those things played into this.
And just quickly, because you covered the transition in 2016, you're covering this transition now, how is he approaching it differently, obviously with the hindsight of having been president?
2016, he was like, what are my powers and how should I exercise them? He knows the answers to both those questions now. And he knows what a loyalty test is. Did you raise a lot of money? Did you defend me when I was in the sort of dark days, 2021, 2022? Were you with me then? Those are key factors. He's not the least bit hesitant or uncertain about what his powers are or how he wants to exercise them. Fundamentally different than 2016.
All right, we will keep an eye on those future picks and confirming from the former president himself who will be in his cabinet. Major and Weija, thank you so much. We'll be talking to you a lot over these next few weeks. And let's go now to Capitol Hill because lawmakers are back today. Republicans have already won control of the Senate, and the House could follow suit. CBS News projects the lower chamber is leaning towards a GOP victory. Tomorrow, Senate Republicans will select their next majority leader. So for more on this, it's our man on the Hill, Scott MacFarlane, joining us now. Scott, good to see you. Thanks for being here. So let's talk about what's on Congress's to-do list. Lawmakers face this deadline to keep the government funded. Walk us through what are some of these policy goals and what kind of, what do lawmakers have in mind in this short lame duck session?
What do they have to do? Well, by December 20th, they have to figure some way to fund the government to avoid another one of those shutdown standoffs. And it's unlikely, again, they get too close to the brink without reaching some agreement. But the big issue here, Caitlin, is how far into 2025 do they temporarily fund the government? How much room, time, and space are they going to give a future President Trump before he has to deal with the next government funding standoff and the next government funding deadline? Do they want to do this through March, or do they want to go all the way through September 30th, giving him more room to launch? It's more likely the latter based on our conversation with sources today, but nothing's firm. They'll have to figure that out over the next few weeks. And again, until January 3rd, there is divided control of the Capitol, with Democrats still controlling the purse strings in the Senate. What else do they have to do? Well, tomorrow, Senate Republicans have to get past the drama of who's going to be the successor to Mitch McConnell, this legendary long-serving Republican leader. Who's going to lead the majority in the Senate? Still a three-person race. Still John Thune, McConnell's lieutenant, the number 2 member of leadership now, John Cornyn of Texas, and this wild card, Rick Scott of Florida, who has the support of, among other people, Elon Musk and other Trump allies. And Rick Scott was on social media posting that Donald Trump is right, that the Senate should use this recess appointment power to circumvent its own authority and speed through Trump nominees. If there's outside pressure trying to put a thumb on the scale tomorrow morning, they may come up empty because, of course, this is a secret ballot election. Difficult to exert power when you can vote in secret, and that's what it is tomorrow. 53 voting members, 27 wins the successorship to Mitch McConnell.
And Scott, I want to talk a little bit about that secret ballot, because you've seen kind of outside allies of the former president, arguing that this should be done out in the open, but that is not how this is done. Can you kind of explain what that process is and essentially why?
You want a surprising election result? Let me give you one. If they change the secret ballot system by some type of vote tomorrow, that would be a shocking election result. The Senate clings to its tradition, its customs. It is a deliberative body, and it likes these types of things, if not for its heritage, for its practicality. It's easier to choose a consensus leader, they believe, by doing so without having your name and your hand raised in front of others. So this would be the surprise of all surprises. And one of the dynamics of a secret ballot election that's worth monitoring is that it could go to a second ballot. It could go to a third ballot without anybody having to declare where they were or where they're going. We know the results, the numbers will be read out. There's no indication we'll find out who voted for whom unless that person wants to announce it.
Some Senate rules still remain. I want to switch gears a little bit because you've been reporting on Capitol riot defendants citing Trump's win to try to delay their sentencing. Do we have any idea of what this could mean? What else can you tell us?
This could be the final chapter of the largest, longest, most historic criminal prosecution in U.S. history. By the dozens, there are court filings we're seeing over the past 72 hours. From January 6, defendants and their defense lawyers asking to postpone open proceedings, hearings, sentencings, appeals, saying let's wait until after January 20th. They argue because Donald Trump has very much promised pardons. They argue it would be a misuse of the court's time, its resources, and that it would be unfair to proceed before January 20th. The Department of Justice is counterpunching, saying no, that is all speculation. You can't have delays just on speculation. We have one decision rendered by one judge for one of those appeals. Judge Amit Mehta today has ruled that no, you don't get a delay in your sentencing just because there could be pardons. Let's see what other judges do if they don't stall out other hearings, because we are getting in closer and closer to Inauguration Day, and the court is still marinating in a tonnage of January 6 cases.
And January right around the corner, if you can believe it. Scott MacFarlane, thank you, as always. And Arizona went red for Donald Trump, but blue for Ruben Gallego. Our own Ed O'Keefe speaks with the newly elected senator from Arizona after his win over a MAGA firebrand named Kari Lake. You're watching America Decides.
Come on, Julia. Oh, no. I will if you will. You go, gal. That's right.
Let me see if you can find me.
I want to make sure that my voice is heard, but also that I lift up other voices.
You can't write a better script.
Yeah, boy.
It's gonna be a ride.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
How fast do you think you were going? 195 mile an hour.
This is incredible.
How close did you actually come to being killed?
That close.
Is this brain surgery without a knife?
It is.
What risk do these children pose to Russia?
I'm not sure the world is prepared for this change.
Definitely not.
Who's the best coach in college football today?
Let me see a mirror.
It's time for the CBS News original, 60 Minutes. Sundays on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now.
We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
I'm a voracious consumer of information and constantly curious. I want to know the basic facts of every issue and to press into the heart of the matter. Information is the currency of democracy, and that's what we bring to the table every Sunday.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
we're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Donald Trump's victory in Arizona was not enough to send staunch ally Kari Lake to the halls of Washington. CBS News is now projecting Democratic Congressman Ruben Gallego has won that state's Senate race. Gallego will fill Kyrsten Sinema's seat and will become the first Latino senator from Arizona. Let's bring in our own Ed O'Keefe, who spoke with the senator-elect. Hey, Ed, good to see you. So walk us through your conversation with Senator-elect now, Gallego.
Caitlin, good to see you. Look, this is a big contest that was closely watched and obviously was one of the last pieces to fall into place for the Senate. We're still waiting for the results from Pennsylvania, but Gallego was projected the winner last night by the networks, held a victory rally in Phoenix, got on the red eye, as you and I have taken before, back here to Washington. He got on that same exact flight to be here for orientation this afternoon here at the Capitol. And when he was able to take a break, we talked to him about how he pulled this off. Take a listen.
We did what we knew we had to do, which is we had to go everywhere, talk to everybody. We had to make sure that we, spoke to our Republican friends, our independent friends, made sure that, Latino voters that I knew were disaffected or feeling like they were being left behind were approached properly, and we talked to them in the way that I knew how to talk to them from growing up. And we just did it, and we did it over 23 months, over and over and over again. And we really had to get out of the kind of box of how we did things. So that we really went to people where they were, because the traditional way of reaching out to many of them was just not working, or at least I had seen it's not working.
Let's walk through some of that. First of all, there's been a lot said and written in the last week about the fact that your party lost a majority of Latino men. A lot of the people doing this talking aren't Latino men. Mm-hmm. You are, and you won. How did you do it? What did Democrats do wrong to lose their support?
Well, a lot of what I did was based on what I knew growing up. And so I grew up, very working class. My mom's secretary, raised us 4 kids alone. I grew up around construction sites, kitchens, working, different jobs with my cousins, with my uncles. And what I did was I realized everything I learned from these guys growing up was the same that a lot of these Latino men are doing now. And so, for example, one of the things that we did when I used to leave construction sites, I would go to watch boxing matches back in the day with my uncles, right? The good old Julio Cesar Chavez days, Oscar de la Hoya days, if you're Puerto Rican, Trinidad, all these guys, right? And I realized it was always kind of a very familial, awesome kind of family thing that all the men would get together to watch. And so with the Canelo fights coming up every 2, and I'm a big boxing fan. I know that Canelo fights twice a year, and I had an election for 23 months. I'm like, we're going to get a couple bites of this apple. So I would put some events around there where I invite men after coming to work to come watch this boxing match. And we didn't talk politics. It was just for them to basically get to know me. I brought my family, brought my son. Put on some gloves, threw a little at the back, caught my son a little jab here and there. And, it was a way, again, for us to, reach out. I mean, the other areas we did is, we did, carne asadas. If you're, especially Mexican, a carne asada, a good old carne asada where you bring your whole family together, your community together, and you just, hang out and just enjoy each other's companies. We even had a banda there, and everybody was singing, and it was a way really for us to talk and be community-minded without actually talking about politics. And, this is a way, again, that, for a lot of men, especially Latino men, you work very hard. You don't have time to do political stuff. Whatever you have time to do, you just want to enjoy with your family. So we try to make that happen, because that's exactly what I remember growing up.
Sounds like you had to take politics to non-political spaces.
You had to take politics to people that hated politics and are disconnected from it. And also don't feel great right now. And, there's, growing up working class, there's nothing more hurtful than working hard and then not being able to provide for your family. And I instinctively knew that's what these men were going through, because I talked to them, but also I remember kind of living that myself.
And it seems like there are members of your party who forgot that or don't know it, or weren't listening to those voters?
I can't speak for anybody else. Like, I know at least for us, for when I started this campaign, I was quite intentional in how I said we need to talk to these men, because I in many ways I'm still them. I still remember trying to figure out how to make it to work, knowing how much money was in my wallet, or just getting excited about having overtime pay so I could pay my extra bills. And to hear them talk about the feeling that they're just not making it anymore really told me something, because any Latino man always believes that they can work themselves out of a problem. Like, if I don't have enough money for a car, I'll just work extra hours. I can't afford the down payment from the house, I'll take on another job. This is the first time I've ever seen men say, like, I can't do this. I can't keep working, and it's still not making a difference. And that's when I realized that there was kind of a problem.
Hearing that from voters in your state and looking at the campaign that Donald Trump ran and Kamala Harris ran, are you surprised that she lost Latino men?
I think it was the transition was not long enough for her to communicate her message. I did see it actually having an effect, but it was the especially Latino voters were looking at the administration and not necessarily at her plans, because her plans were good for Latino men, but they were still hurting. They still felt the sting of not being able to provide for their family.
So notable, Caitlin, that he says Kamala Harris didn't have enough time to make the case, but was in the process of doing so. Maybe if she'd had more time, she would have pulled it off. A lot there, and you'll see more of it tonight on the Daily Report tomorrow morning on CBS Mornings regarding how it is this key group of people needs to be sought after by candidates going forward. And as he said, Democrats have no choice but to seek their support, because without Latino votes, you cannot be a national party. And the other thing, Caitlin, is kind of interesting. If you think about the changing nature of Congress, come January, once he's in office, you can draw a line from Texas through New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada to California. All of those states will have at least one Latino senator.
Wow, that is quite a feat there. And Ed, you know, as much as we talk about national politics and the national landscape and the national mood, you know, that interview kind of suggests what he was saying is sometimes you just really have to do the work in your communities to actually reach those people. So a lesson for Democrats across the country. Ed O'Keefe, that it's a great interview. We'll look forward to more on all of our platforms. We'll see you soon, friend. And coming up, let the blame game begin. Democrats start the finger pointing over Vice President Kamala Harris's brutal loss. We'll take a closer look at that next on America Decides.
An original documentary from CBS reports.
It was genocide, a deliberate effort by the United States government to eliminate the food source that was relied upon by Native American tribes.
American bison were slaughtered and Native Americans displaced.
And that's how tribes were subjugated to reservations and our lands were taken.
But now, through conservation efforts at Yellowstone,
Buffalo provided everything that we needed. Now they need help.
a herd grows.
We need to step up and help them.
And a culture is reborn.
When the buffalo return and come back, that's when our tribe will begin to heal.
Yellowstone Bison Revival, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Oh, wow. Look at this.
Let 60 Minutes take you on a private tour of the National Archives.
So there may be treasures like this buried in boxes.
Historical secrets from America's past.
So this is original from 1778?
This case.
It's like a screenplay, something straight out of Hollywood.
But it's not fiction. It's 48 hours.
Human remains found this week.
4 families shattered.
There's no physical evidence.
The mystery would haunt investigators for years.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Like a John Grisham novel.
A gripping true crime original. 48 hours. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places. Bright, shiny faces.
Nate has one of the quickest minds I've ever seen.
Put me in the game, coach.
Tony has a way of making people feel comfortable.
The best interviews feel like it's just a conversation with a neighbor.
Hey.
Gail has this unbelievable knack to ask a question that is the question that you're asking at home.
I've been told I could talk to a tree, and that's pretty much true.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings, weekdays at 7.
I'll see you in the morning.
Listening to how someone explains themselves is so key to understanding their perspective.
The grief of losing a child is immense. You can't breathe.
After decades of the war on drugs, things have only gotten worse.
Every shipment of fentanyl is a ticking time bomb.
50 times more powerful than heroin.
CBS Reports goes deep into Mexico.
What is your role in the Sinaloa cartel?
To find out why the cartels keep getting stronger and wealthier.
This is a war, but we're not fighting it. Our citizens are dying.
Funding Cartels, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Do you believe that Vice President Harris should have created more of a distinction between what she was going to do up against what the Biden administration is doing?
Well, we'll have an opportunity to engage in after-action analysis, and I expect that will happen not just over the next few days, but over the next few weeks and the next few months. It will be required. From our perspective as House Democrats, I think we're going to have a family conversation that needs to be clear-eyed, candid, and comprehensive to figure out what happened on election night.
That was House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries discussing Kamala Harris's election loss this morning. But just because the New York congressman is choosing to steer clear of some of that finger pointing does not mean that that doesn't exist. Other members of the Democratic Party are doing the same. In a new article from Notice, this details exactly who and what more than a dozen Harris campaign staffers, Democratic operatives and strategists, and White House officials are all blaming Trump's resounding victory on last week. And its writer, Jasmine Wright, joins us now. You've been following the Harris campaign. You've been following Harris for years. Yep. It's great to have you with us. And this report is so comprehensive. And what stood out to us was this idea that staffers were telling you that this campaign was, quote, broken since the beginning. There's been so much finger pointing at Biden, at other Democrats, at the messaging. But what's so interesting about your piece was it detailed the finger pointing at Harris herself. So what's this all about?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, to be clear, what we heard from Democrats that we spoke to for the piece, yes, they blamed Joe Biden. They blamed him for staying in so long. They blamed his advisors for not understanding the plight that Americans were going through, particularly when it comes to the economy. But they also blamed him for creating a campaign or choosing leadership that created a campaign that was insular, that wasn't open to advice, but also that was built thinking that Biden wouldn't have a lot of enthusiasm or a lot of money. And so it was really difficult to scale up when the vice president came in, and she brought those two things. Also, people said it was a campaign that was staffed by people who were too junior for several roles. And so a lot of criticism was put on campaign leadership from these folks who I talked to, who really felt that the campaign wasn't ready for the type of race, not just to elect Joe Biden, who of course was unpopular, but then to elect the vice president, and felt that she had inherited this kind of behemoth that set her up for failure.
I mean, it was fascinating reading your piece because this is a campaign that raised $1 billion. And in your piece, Harris herself did not know that they actually needed to raise more, that they were in debt.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, we have a great topper that looks at this moment where she's reading this fundraising script and she says, we missed our deadline. And then she says, we can't lie to people. And it just shows kind of how in the dark she was, in part because it's 107 days, right? She had to focus on running and being on the road, and everybody else was focusing on everything. But the fact is that they were missing their fundraising deadline. We reported that they missed their September deadline. That was after they revised their fundraising goals because they weren't hitting the projections that they thought they would based on the big money that the Vice President Biden brought in when she initially came into the race. And that was based on a couple different things, in part because they burned through 1 million subscribers to their email list, and therefore that cut off 1 million people from getting ask for money and also volunteer opportunities, the messaging. They were putting too much money into trying to fundraise to get some of that money back. Obviously, $2 going out, only $1 coming in. And then obviously just some of their spending. One person called it basically financially irresponsible what the campaign leadership was doing.
Incredible in terms of that amount of money raised, setting records in that way. Another interesting point in your piece, you talk about multiple people that told you that, quote, Black aides felt routinely mistreated and demoralized. I mean, this was the candidacy of potentially would have been the first Black woman president.
Yeah, and it seems really kind of concerning that Black folks on the campaign were feeling that, but I had been hearing it for months. We had a piece that came out in early September about the fact that the Black political class felt that the campaign wasn't spending their money wisely, in a part to tell her story to the community and not using the Black political class. And so that's when we kind of started hearing of these concerns from folks on the campaign, feeling very demoralized, feeling mistreated, feeling like they weren't getting really the share of important work or attention that potentially other staffers, potentially white staffers were getting. And I think that this is just a really constant refrain in Democratic politics of how you treat Black staffers or staffers that aren't just, in the white political class. And we saw it continued here.
Yeah, so many lessons to learn. I know Democrats are going to be reading your piece, as we all have.
They should.
I hope some rest is on the horizon for you because you have just excelled covering her.
Thank you.
And I know you'll keep at it. So, Jasmine, thank you so much for your time and reporting. And President Biden met with Israeli President Isaac Herzog at the White House today. Biden said his commitment to the country is, quote, ironclad. The administration has been trying to secure a ceasefire and hostage deal before President-elect takes office. President-elect Trump, I should say. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says that he's spoken with President-elect Trump multiple times since election night. And Trump has already made his pick for several top spots in his administration. Our political panel will weigh in on how smoothly confirmations could run for the returning president. You're watching America Decides.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
That desired farm, it's a wonderful place to raise children, and it still is.
Promises broken.
Black Americans have been the target of racism and discrimination pretty much from the time they acquired ownership in the land.
Costing black farmers hundreds of billions in generational wealth.
They did everything to make sure we were run off that land.
But communities are uniting to continue the fight.
Collective ownership is powerful.
To keep their land and their dreams alive.
To watch my children play on land that we own means everything.
So land is power.
Most definitely.
40 Acres and a Mule, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Go to the ends of the earth. Reach for the stars.
Yeah, I just took off. That kind of thing.
Oh, that's pretty good. Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
Can see clearly now.
Clearly, CBS Mornings.
Weekdays on CBS.
Yeah!
Tony, coming?
No, I'm gonna stick around for an hour.
Hey!
CBS Mornings Plus with Adriana Diaz and Tony DeCopel, right after CBS Mornings.
It's just like mornings.
Plus fun.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be a bright, sunshiny day.
These 7 miles of tunnels were the secret storage site for fuel for the Navy's Pacific Fleet in planes.
So this is one of the tanks.
Oh my gosh.
What happened 20 stories below ground is a story for 60 Minutes.
This thing that was a lifeline for the fleet is a threat.
That's right.
I'm Erin Moriarty of 48 Hours, and of all the cases I've covered, this is the one that troubles me most. Listen to Murder in the Orange Grove, the troubled case against Crosley Green, wherever you get your podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
AI is among the most world-changing technologies ever.
Curing diseases, scientific breakthroughs, making lives better.
They can help us with medical discoveries, scientific discoveries, doing better agriculture, having cures for things like Alzheimer's.
It's also going to really transform the way we work.
The uplifting potential of artificial intelligence is limitless.
It gives you a friend, somebody to chat with 24/7 that is non-judgmental. He makes me feel loved and desired.
And so are its downfalls.
The problem with all this AI is that it's unpredictable and uncontrollable. The choices we make now will have lasting effects for decades, maybe even centuries.
The ChatGPT revolution, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Sunday morning, a visit with the Wayans at Papa's house, plus affairs of state with the diplomat, and in praise of pigeons. Listen for the trumpet.
And we're gaining a clearer picture of Trump's new administration and what that might look like, and how his picks might shape the president's second term. Here now to share more are Megan Hayes and Mark Lauder. Megan served in the Biden administration, and Mark formerly served as former President Trump's White House and on his 2020 presidential campaign. Mark, good to see you. I want to start with you first because you are in sunny West Palm Beach where the transition is happening. You also work for the America First policy arm. Tell us a little bit about kind of what role that organization is playing in terms of shaping this incoming administration.
Well, the America First Policy Institute was actually formed at the end of the first Trump administration, where all of the folks who were in the White House and also key senior agency officials, as opposed to going off and going into the corporate world or academia, they came together under the America First Policy Institute, where they've been working for the last 4 years, putting down the policies that the Trump presidency was based on in the first term, what they had planned to do in the second term, getting that all ready, whether it's research, white papers, eventually possible executive actions. And now all of that is sitting there waiting. And if the president-elect chooses to engage on that, he'll obviously have that expertise and that research to build his work on.
And Megan, we are in D.C., not in West Palm Beach, so we don't have the stunning setting that Mark has. But there's obviously a lot of finger-pointing going on among Democrats. We just talked to Jasmine Wright about the blame that the Harris campaign might be bearing. But you worked for Biden. Is he responsible? Do the criticisms of Biden, are they warranted?
I think that there is a lot of blame to go around, and I think it's warranted to look at everyone, but I think that we could always go back and do the woulda, coulda, shoulda game, and we could be in a different spot. But the fact is we are where we are, and Democrats now need to look forward. We need to really take stock in who we are and who we are as a party and start to move forward. But yes, of course, there's blame. There is enough blame to go around for everyone in this situation.
Yeah, a lot of soul searching among Democrats.
Exactly.
Mark, you know that well because Republicans had done the same a few years ago. But I want to talk about some of these potential cabinet picks. Marco Rubio in particular, obviously kind of the biggest name that we've heard so far in this administration, reportedly being the selection for Secretary of State. What do you make of that pick? And what does that signal about the president-elect's foreign policy goals?
Well, obviously, Senator Rubio is well-versed in foreign policy and in international relations. He's been obviously a longtime senator, and I think it's a great choice when you even have folks like Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania, a Democrat, coming out and saying that he supports Marco Rubio. Should the president-elect name him, that's still not obviously been reported out officially yet. But I think it shows that he's picking people who are not only capable of offering advice, they're also offering the ability to go execute. And so Senator Rubio, obviously, is well-versed in this area. He's traveled around, and I think he'd be a great Secretary of State. But also what I'm seeing in a lot of these picks, in former governors, business executives, it's not just people who can advise the president, it's people who can go out and get the job done once he makes the decision to go.
Yeah, and to that point, Megan, I mean, you heard from Fetterman and others. I mean, this seems like a highly confirmable pick. Are Democrats seeing any sort of ways in which they could work with this administration on foreign policy? Obviously, the economy, the border played big roles, but foreign policy did too in this election.
Yeah, I think that this is part of the reason that Rubio is an attractive candidate for Secretary of State to some of the Democrats. I think because he is confirmable and he has worked across the aisle on a lot of different things. The Secretary of State post is one of the most important in the entire administration. They represent America abroad. They represent our interests. And that's important to have someone there that has the confidence of not only the president, but of Congress. And I think it's really important with a Congress that's so close. And, you know, the Republicans do have the majority, but it's a slight majority. So I think it is smart to put someone there that can work across the aisle with these folks.
And speaking of working across the aisle, you know, Republicans are going to have control of the Senate. We're still waiting on the House, but it looks like a narrow House majority for the Republicans. Where do you see Democrats playing in here? Is it to kind of be the resistance party, or are they going to have to work with Republicans to kind of, you know, as essentially get better perhaps at messaging, as you were mentioning?
I would hope that the Democrats will find some things, some common ground to work with Republicans on, because the people who lose when we are fighting against each other are the American people, and I don't think that's fair. I think the American people spoke in this election. They have decided what they want as policies. I think it's Democrats' responsibility to check them when it's appropriate, but there are certain things that they can work together, and it's important to do that.
And Mark, just quickly, how are Republicans feeling about that? Because the former president, now president-elect, says he has a mandate. Does he need to work with Democrats?
Well, obviously, Republicans could go along with this and just do this amongst themselves. But if there is an opportunity to work together, I'm sure the president would. He did it in the first term with the First Step Act. He also made overtures on immigration and dealing with the immigration crisis. There was a little bit of consensus there, but not a lot. I think this will offer Democrats an opportunity if they want to do things that might help them out at home, like John Fetterman suddenly becoming, you know, a supporter of Marco Rubio. That also could be the fact that Pennsylvania is trending redder. Is that a way for him to look ahead to the election? So I think it's going to be a very interesting challenge for a lot of the Democrats of where do they work with this president and where do they just oppose him?
Yeah, especially in states where he won. Will be interesting alliances formed, and we'll be keeping tabs on all of it. Megan Hayes and Mark Lauder, thank you so much.
Great to see you.
The stock market hit pause today on its record-setting spike after Trump's victory. But what comes after the honeymoon? CBS's Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins us next with more. You're watching America Decides.
Go to the ends of the earth.
Right now. We got something crazy.
And reach for the stars.
Here we are.
Time.
Yes, it's my comeback.
Hey, this is pretty fun.
But wait, there's more.
Experience thought-provoking,
I'm open to the idea of being a human being.
innovative, and truly original reporting.
Look through a telescope and go, wow.
Because there's always something new under the sun on CBS Sunday morning.
At this moment, terrorists could be plotting another attack.
9/11 triggered a counter-terrorist system that included a secret database.
This person needs a closer look.
A growing list of nearly 2 million people, including some Americans who say they're innocent.
For 1 hour flight, I have to spend 6 hours to go and come back.
CBS Reports explores the system, the people responsible for it, and those pushing for change.
I'm not fighting against them. I'm fighting for them to do the right thing.
The Watch List, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Don't miss true crime anytime you want, anywhere you go. With the 48 Hours podcast. Real crimes, real lives, real justice.
There's some questions that have to be asked and need to be answered.
Listen to 48 Hours on Apple Podcasts.
An original documentary from CBS Reports.
Imagine yourself in Manhattan with no police, no army, no mayor.
The people of Haiti stare down poverty, corruption, natural disasters, and violence.
90% of the guns that are used by gangs in Haiti are American guns.
But with an unbreakable spirit and eternal optimism.
There are days where I cry, but we can't be discouraged. We still believe in Haiti.
They're still able to look ahead with hope.
Haiti is on the brink of transformation, a radical shift. Haitians are coming together and saying things must change.
Fighting for Haiti, now streaming on the free CBS News app.
Hey there, welcome to The Uplift.
I thought she was a groom, and I stepped back and I went, oh, you're the queen. She's gonna be with me every instant that I'm alive.
I just wanted to see if you'd go to Disneyland with me today.
I look over at him and he's smiling.
I'm going to remember that the rest of my life.
They told us when he was going to be born, he was only going to live for 30 minutes. It's really a miracle that he's with us today.
The Uplift, stream now on the free CBS News app.
When you wake up in the morning, we want to be your go-to team.
On our places, bright, shiny faces.
I don't go to work in the morning. I go for coffee with my 2 good friends, and we talk about the world.
Your morning routine just got better. CBS Mornings.
A CBS News investigation. People looking for love, finding their life savings gone.
This could happen to anybody.
And sometimes losing their lives. Anything for love. Now streaming on the free CBS News app.
The U.S. stock market rally lost some steam today, but in the days following President-elect Trump's victory, the Dow and S&P 500 both soared to record heights. Here to take a deeper dive on the Trump effect is CBS News Money Watch correspondent Kelly O'Grady. Kelly, great to see you. Thanks for being here. So how much of a factor is Trump's victory behind this market surge?
Yeah, so great to be with you, Caitlin. And look, the Trump effect of it all, this is a big portion of it because, look, markets like a clarity. They're just like us, investors. They don't like uncertainty. So last week we learned who the president is going to be, as well as what interest rates are going to look like for the next 6 weeks. We also got that Fed Reserve rate cut. So those two pieces are really driving it. And with Trump, you can see it in a couple of sectors, cryptocurrency, banking, that softer regulatory environment that he has promised. Investors are looking at that. They're saying this is going to be good for profits. And Caitlin, we saw the money pour in.
And how long do you think this might last?
So we did get a little bit of pullback today. And this is what we like to call in the markets world profit taking. You got a lot of profit. So let's take some of that cash off the table for a rainy day. I do think what I'm hearing from folks, this is going to last probably through the end of the year. Folks are expecting we're going to end on a net positive because Trump hasn't taken office yet. We have ideas of what it's going to be like, but we don't know for sure what this is going to mean for companies. The rub of it, though, Caitlin, is inflation. We're going to get an inflation report tomorrow. So if that comes in stickier than expected, hotter than expected, you could see the markets react negatively.
Yeah, one number everyone will be watching. Kelly, I've been dying to ask you about Elon Musk because we've been talking about his political influence all week. But I'm also curious about, Tesla, his company. Like, are they benefiting from this election at all? Has Tesla stock gone up? What have we seen?
Hugely, Caitlin. Okay, so compared to last week with the election, Tesla stock has jumped over 30%. Elon Musk has added tens of billions to his net worth. So I guess it pays, in this case, to be part of President-elect Trump's inner circle. The interesting thing, though, is this is not necessarily a bet on the actual company, because in theory, this administration will be less favorable to electric vehicles than the previous administration. This is really a bet that Elon Musk will be able to influence the next president. But what I will caution you is that so much of Tesla's sales, their manufacturing, rely on China. So this question of tariffs and how hard of a line President-elect Trump plans to take on that could be kind of a complicating factor for Tesla.
Yeah, I want to ask about tariffs because, as you know, former President Trump has said that tariffs, that's his favorite word in the dictionary on the campaign trail. He threatened to increase tariffs on U.S. goods from China and a lot of other things. Are we seeing any kind of impact yet? How could that impact the markets in the months ahead?
So no impact in the stock market. I think you're seeing it in the bond market. So treasuries have spiked up a little bit. That gives you an indication that investors are expecting we could be entering potentially an inflationary environment. Some of President-elect Trump's policies could be inflationary, including the tariffs. But look, he's also said it could be potentially just a negotiating tactic. So it's a wait and see situation, Caitlin.
We will stay tuned for sure. Kelly O'Grady, thank you so much. And billionaires backed Trump's bid to get back to the White House. But now that the deal is done, what could they get in return? We're talking money and politics next on America Decides.
CBS Mornings Plus, clearly more news, more smart conversation.
More money-saving tips, more recipes.
More uplifting ways to get you on your way.
Plus, more sports, more weather.
Clearly, more CBS Mornings.
Plus,
sunshiny day.
Washington is the seat of power. National security, foreign policy, global economics, every story comes through Washington in some way. We bring some of the most powerful voices in America to the table. We don't just ask the questions, you have to go deeper. We try to understand what's at the heart of the issue we're talking about, to then come forward with solutions.
Face the Nation on CBS.
I have a dorky look to me. I don't look like a criminal at all.
60 Minutes has reported on fraudsters, criminals, and hoodlums. But what this minor league thief was able to do surprised even us.
These are Yogi Berra's World Series rings.
A sports story you'll have to see to believe.
Need more time with 48 Hours? Go deep behind every true crime episode with first-hand accounts from 48 Hours Investigations.
Were you at all prepared for what happened in this case?
Shock is the word that comes to mind.
Get inside the twists and turns and get in on the case. Listen to Postmortem from 48 Hours, now available wherever you get your podcasts.
I think we're very cute.
Yeah, I think we need to send out a Christmas card like this.
Yeah, let's do that.
Dollar Jill.
If you can't get into the market, it's okay. Renting is fine.
I wonder how Serena is feeling.
That's a really good question. No one's asked me that yet.
You're 70 years old? 70, yeah. I'm 21.
We'll see you 7 o'clock sharp.
Sunday morning, the Music Man, T-Bone Burnett, plus Ted Danson and Martha Stewart with Just the Recipe. Listen for the trumpet.
I report from a lot of war zones, but I don't really take the same risks.
He's one of the bravest war correspondents 60 Minutes has ever met. But it's his relationship with his mother that you will remember. Plus, the robots making marble masterpieces in Italy.
kid growing up in Chicago, there was one horror movie I was too scared to watch. It was called Candyman. But did you know that the movie Candyman was partly inspired by an actual murder? Listen to Candyman, the true story behind the bathroom mirror murder, wherever you get your podcasts.
The CBS News original 60 Minutes opens its archives.
Pretty loose for a Friday night.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not my first show.
With moments you haven't heard before.
It's almost more fun that way when you have something to prove.
Listen to 60 Minutes, a second look, wherever you get your podcasts.
And welcome back to America Decides. Billionaires poured in huge sums of money to help President-elect Donald Trump take the White House. The world's richest man, Elon Musk, hitched his wagon to the former president, giving nearly $200 million. Now he's reportedly weighing in on staffing decisions. But what do Musk and some of these other high rollers stand to gain from another Trump administration? Well, CBS News investigative reporter Dan Kleinman joins us now for more on this. Dan, thanks so much for being here. So Musk has been hanging out at Mar-a-Lago over the past several days. He was there on Election Day and had been on the campaign trail. But of course, companies do a lot of business with the federal government. So how might the Trump administration benefit him?
Well, in so many ways. I mean, first of all, Elon Musk's business interests cross so many of the most important sectors of not just the American economy, but the global economy. You think about the fact that he is heavily invested in, obviously, electric vehicles with Tesla, space exploration and rocketry with SpaceX, satellites, and AI. These are all areas that made him the richest man in the world, and he's on his way to being maybe the first trillionaire in the world. But they are also heavily regulated parts of the economy where there's a huge difference between having regulatory relief and being what he would consider to be overly regulated in terms of how much money he can make. But the thing about a guy like Elon Musk is, as I said, he is the richest man in the world. A few $1 billion here and there may not make that much difference to him. So there's more that he's looking for. There are some people who think he is the country's first real oligarch, and that his interests transcend American policies. He stands on the global stage. This is someone who has the power to affect the course of wars and geopolitics, and has huge ambitions, space exploration, and who knows what else comes next. So all of these things, being in the United States, so close to President Trump, and being really in the administration in some ways, will make a big difference to him.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible to think of his current and potential reach there. What about some of these other mega donors? What were some of their motivations here?
So that's the interesting question, Caitlin. And what I set to do with this piece that I've written for CBS.com is to do a kind of a taxonomy of these mega donors. They don't all have the same motivations. Some of them are transactional. Some of them are looking for regulatory relief or tax relief, or to get, government contracts to help their bottom line. I call those the transactionalists. The crypto industry is a good example of that. They are very pragmatic about who they give money to. They give money to people who they believe will support their industry. It can be a Democrat or a Republican. For the most part, it is Republicans because Donald Trump has been very favorable toward the crypto industry. But that's really their motivation. Then there are people whose motivations are more ideological. They have a lot of money. They don't necessarily need that much more. What they want to do is use their money to affect change with hot-button social issues, foreign policy issues. A great example of that is Miriam Adelson, the casino magnate who is a big supporter of Jewish causes and of Israel. She gave hundreds of millions. She and her now deceased husband gave a lot of money in 2016. And a lot of people think that money led to Donald Trump, when he became president, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So that was her primary motivation.
So many people involved here, a lot of interest at stake as well. Dan Kleidman, I know you'll be following the money for us, as you already have. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
And with the changing of the guard in Washington, one foreign leader is teeing up his strategy to get close to President-elect Trump. South Korea's president says he's picked up his golf clubs for the first time in 8 years. He hopes that brushing up on his game will help strengthen his bond with the president-elect. This is not the first time that allies have used golf as a way to befriend Trump. Japan's late prime minister gifted him gold-plated golf clubs in 2016 after winning his first term. The conductor of the Underground Railroad now has a new title, General. The Maryland National Guard posthumously awarded Harriet Tubman that rank on Veterans Day. She escaped slavery in 1849 and helped hundreds of others do the same. During the Civil War, Tubman became the first African-American woman to serve the U.S. military in combat. And that does it for us today. We'll be back with another edition of America Decides tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. The Daily Report starts right now.
Welcome to the Daily Report on November 12th, 2024. I'm Lindsay Reiser. Tonight, major posts decided. President-elect Donald Trump is rounding out his team, announcing more of his cabinet picks as a judge delays a key decision in Trump's criminal case in New York.